Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for coming this evening. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes, so feel free to please find a seat, and we'll be getting started in just a few minutes. Thank you. Well, hello again, everyone. Thank you very much. We're going to get started now. If at any point you do need to use the restroom, feel free. We have a men and women's restroom right out those back doors there. You'll feel free to use those facilities throughout the event tonight. On behalf of the Dartmouth Conservatives and the Nelson A. Rockefeller Center for Public Policy, thank you all for being here, and welcome to the 2024 New Hampshire 2nd Congressional District Republican Forum. My name is John Coleman, and I'm a junior at Dartmouth and the vice president of the Dartmouth Conservatives, a small but mighty club here at the Big Green. With the Cook Partisan Voting Index of Democrat +2, New Hampshire's 2nd Congressional District is one of the most competitive in the nation, and a must-win if Republicans seek to expand their majority in the House of Representatives. Tonight, we will hear from two leading candidates. They will share their visions for New Hampshire and America, and we will cover a wide range of topics. General topics have been shared with candidates in advance, but the questions have not. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, and we will rotate which candidate answers first. The last 10 minutes of the forum have been reserved for audience questions, which have been submitted in advance. Those questions have been edited only for length and clarity. And now to the candidates. Bill Hamlen graduated from Dartmouth College in 1984, an active member of the Dartmouth Outing Club, our student newspaper, the Dartmouth, and Bonesgate fraternity. He even worked behind the counter at Lou's. After working as an international commodity trader, Bill returned to Hanover with his wife and daughters. He remains an active alumnus of the college and is the 45th recipient of the Weldon Kaiser Award in recognition of his extensive and devoted service to Dartmouth. When not campaigning, you could run into Bill at Alumni Gym or walking his dog in Pine Park. A survivor of Mao's communist regime, Lily Tang Williams was born to illiterate parents and grew up during Mao's Cultural Revolution in China's Sichuan province, experiencing firsthand the horrors of communist and socialist policies. After receiving a copy of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence from an American student in university, Lily first learned about the concept of individual rights and liberties. No longer able to support the Chinese Communist Party, Lily managed to escape communist China for America, where she met her future husband. Now married and with 3 children, Lily Tang Williams is an entrepreneur, managing rental properties and sharing her experiences under communism with the world. She has been featured on Fox and has written articles for the Concord Monitor, the National Review, and other publications. She is also the chair of the New Hampshire Asian American Coalition and involved with the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation in Washington, D.C. Now, in keeping with Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, our discussion tonight will focus on policies and visions. Before we begin, I'd like to thank both the candidates for their attendance, the audience for yours as well, and the Rockefeller Center for its constant support throughout the process. A very special thanks goes to Devorah Greenberg-Koling, Assistant Director for Public Programs and Special Events. This forum would not have been possible without you. Thank you. Thank you all. Yes. Thank you all, and let's get to the issues. We'll have the candidates up here. We'll begin with opening remarks, then we'll go to some of our questions, and we'll finish with some closing remarks.
Is that okay to go lower? Better? Because last
Jesse.
time something covered my face. I did not like that. I'm short, you know.
We did a random coin toss before this to determine who would go first. Lily Tang Williams will be going first. We will then have Mr. Hamlen give his opening remarks. Before we go to the questions, Mr. Hamlen will answer first for the first question. We will then rotate through who answers first for the following questions. All candidates will respond to all questions.
So where is the time? Okay.
Devorah will have the time.
Okay, will that beep or how will that work?
It'll count down, and we'll let you know when. It won't make a large beeping noise. Yeah. Don't worry.
Okay, want to make sure I understand the rules first. Right, yeah. Well, thank you for making this possible. Whenever I have opportunity to go to college campuses, I will always try my best to be here. It's a great way to engage our youth to have this kind of open conversations about the democratic process. And of course, this is a very political year. I am Lily Tang Williams. My website, lilytangwilliams.com. Born and grew up in communist China. And I, just like, what I said in my stories, I did not know actually what freedom is. I did not know what capitalism is. I was totally brainwashed. And when I finally realized I could not live under freedom, and I wanted to come to the United States. It took me a long time to go through that process. So when I finally made here in 1988 with nothing, but I was super happy and excited and arrived at Austin, Texas with $100. And today I'm here to have an opportunity to engage in a political debate with my opponent, Bill, and I am the embodiment of American dream. Think about anybody, no matter where you come from, you could have an opportunity here to engage in this our grassroots political process and voice your opinions and have an opportunity to serve your state and the people and your country. I'm very grateful for America, and you gave me tremendous freedom and opportunities to succeed. I'm self-employed, and I have a wonderful family. I'm very blessed. So I look forward to this productive conversation and debate, and to engage our audience, our voters who are also watching online. And I would love for you to give me a serious look as a congressional candidate in 2nd Congressional District. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hamlen?
Hi, good evening, and thank you, Jack, and thank you, Devorah. Thank you, Rockefeller Center, for this event, and thank all of you for being here tonight. So my name is Bill Hamlen. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. I come from a middle-class home. My father was a chemist. My mother was a nurse. I was raised as a Catholic. I was an altar boy, and also I'm an Eagle Scout. When I was in high school, my first real job was working on a farm. I learned how to drive tractors, how to bale hay, took care of a couple of horses, and a herd of cows. I also shoveled a lot of manure. That job taught me the value of hard work, a value that I share with all of you and the people of New Hampshire. When I was in high school, I also heard about a college that had the best outing club in the country, and that was Dartmouth College, and I was lucky enough to get in. So at age 18, I packed my bags, and I headed to Hanover, and I fell in love with New Hampshire, and that's really why I'm here today. After college, I headed to Manhattan, where I met my wife, Rowena. We've been married 28 years. We've got 2 beautiful daughters that are here this evening. And so Dartmouth's motto, and I don't know where this came from, but one of Dartmouth's mottos is that Dartmouth is a base camp to the world. And for me, this was very true. I left base camp, I traveled the world, I lived the American dream, met my wife, raised a family, and when it was time to settle down, I came back to base camp. And one of the reasons I'm running is to protect that American dream for you, for your children, and for your grandchildren. So a little bit about my career. At Dartmouth, I studied economics, and I took a course in agribusiness, and that led to a job at a grain trading firm, and I fell in love with commodities. So ultimately, I became a energy trading specialist, and I traded energy throughout the world. That was my career. Now, like many of you, I think our country is heading in the wrong direction. We have open borders, we've got rising crime, we've got the worst inflation since the 1970s. Our very way of life is under attack. So I'm really running to help steer us back on course to bring common sense conservative leadership back to Washington to protect you and the people of New Hampshire. We've got something special up here. We've got the lowest crime rate in the nation, and I want to protect and preserve our way of life up here. So I'm Bill Hamlen, and I'm running for Congress to represent you people and to bring common sense conservative leadership back to Washington. Thank you.
Thank you both. Our first topic for discussion tonight is the state of the economy. We have 2 questions. We'll start with the first one. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. Mr. Hamlen will respond first. The 2024 Republican platform reads in part, President Trump has made absolutely clear that he will not cut 1 penny from Medicare or Social Security. Some Republicans, most notably Senator and Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance, have recently praised FTC Chairwoman Lina Khan and her radical antitrust theories. It is fair to say that there are growing questions about the future of the Republican Party's economic agenda. In your opinion, what economic vision should guide the conservative movement, and what economic policies would you support if elected to Congress? Mr. Hamlen, 2 minutes.
Okay, 2-part question. Let me start with the first one. I've got 2 parents, 94, they're both on Medicare, and I know a lot about Medicare. My wife's mother, who's 91, is also on Medicaid, so I'm also familiar with Medicaid. So these programs are vital, and the thing I like most about them is that they provide not just medical care, but peace of mind. And it's the peace of mind that's important. So I would not in any way, shape, or form advocate for cutting any of these programs, but I have heard it said that if there's any reform to take place, it should be bipartisan. It's probably one of the few areas where I think both parties agree that any type of reform should be bipartisan in nature. Now, when it comes to the economy, the biggest problem we face is inflation. Milton Friedman once said, in the history of mankind, inflation has never been caused by consumer spending. It has forever been a function of government overspending. And that's the problem we have right now, government overspending. So if we want to bring inflation under control to help the economy, we need to start by cutting the spending and getting spending under control. I also think we need to look at the budget process. The earmarks, the pork that are involved, that's where the budget spins out of control. So I think we needed to look at that aspect of the process. Then when it comes to inflation in general, the biggest threat that we face, Joe Biden declared war on American energy, and this has helped fuel inflation. So I think we need to reverse his war on American energy. We are blessed with the greatest resources on planet Earth. And it's amazing to me that Joe Biden has declared war on this. So when I go to Congress, I want to use my skills to help release American energy, to bring down the price of energy, which will then help bring down inflation. And I think that's the best thing we can possibly do for the economy.
Well, on my campaign trail, most people tell me the number 1 issue for them is inflation, economy, cost everything is going up. For working families who raise children and small business, and for lots of seniors who actually rely on fixed Social Security income. And I talk about this another night. If we stick to original purpose of Social Security, the government never looted the Social Security trust fund in a lockbox, we don't have to even publicly talk about this. But because the government is always addicted to spending other people's money, and there's no trust fund, and that's why this issue comes up. Like, what are you going to do about the Social Security might be insolvent some years later? And I have always told the seniors, I will protect you, Social Security and Medicare. You work hard all your life to pay into the system. I'm sorry you have to now suffer from this Joe Biden's economics, right? I mean, they are, struggling to pay bills, and small business families are struggling for pay bills. But the Republican Party, to counter Democrat socialist policies, we need to offer very good free market capitalism and economic growth, the vision. The vision is to get the government out of the way, make a Trump tax cut permanent, and cut down government regulations, out of control spending. And if taxes are low, and the entrepreneurs have incentive to invest and create jobs, we will have a tremendous amount of economical growth. Instead of Harris talk about price control, government is God and government knows everything, I think start with the college. Everybody should really, include our politicians, learn some economics 101. I have to learn that after I come from China, because all I learned is communism. So I think the Republicans should really be strong to advocate for that kind of vision with the voters.
Thank you. Now we've got a little bit of an answer to this question already, but in June of 2022, inflation reached its highest point since 1980. While the inflation rate has fallen in recent months, prices are still about 20% higher than they were when President Biden and Vice President Harris took office in 2021, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Harris has attributed the spike in inflation to corporate greed and proposed federal price controls as a signature part of her plan to tackle rising prices. If elected to Congress, what specific policies would you support to fight inflation and lower prices? Mrs. Williams?
On my website, number one issue is about the economy, and the U.S. House is supposed to be controlling the budget and controlling the appropriation bills. And when was last time our U.S. House produced 12 appropriation budget bills, which is like one bill by one subcommittee? It was under Bill Clinton and the Republican-controlled Congress. They balanced budget, they had 12 appropriation bills, but right now what we see, our federal government, especially in the House, they have failed to do their number one job. It's always an omnibus bill, you heard in the press and in the media all the time, continued resolution, and we are $35 trillion in debt, and we cannot keep borrowing and keep printing money. That's what drives up inflation. That's why I said, Democrats need to learn economics 101. I had to learn that, come here. It's not a corporation grade. Government caused the inflation by printing money and lack of sound economical money policies, and rely on borrowing and printing, even included from my native country, China, to fund their out-of-control spending. And we all have to balance budget. But the federal government can't just keep printing, increase credit card, unlimited credit limits, and our kids are gonna pay for it. So I would like to push for Congress go back to its core job to come up with appropriation budget bills and negotiate earlier, sitting down early instead of waiting until last minute. Procrastinating is never a good thing. I told my 3 kids when they were in school, you sacrifice your grades, right? So I would like to push for that. And if we can cut budget and cut spending, and even when your brother come to you to say, can I borrow some money, can I spend this? But say, sorry, I cannot help you, but I love you. So we'll have to tie our belt. Let's do that.
Mr. Hamlen?
I've been up and down the state from Canada to Massachusetts border, and gas stations and general stores, and speaking to the voters, and I agree, the number one issue we face is inflation and the cost of living in particular. The Democrats have said recently that inflation is slowing down, but as you point out, the price of things hasn't come down. I read recently that the average household in New Hampshire is spending $1,000 more per month on goods and services than they were before Joe Biden came into office. And as I said, it's government spending that is fueling inflation, as Milton Friedman said. And so I think we need to reduce government spending to reduce inflation. And I also think, here in New Hampshire, we live within our means, and we have New Hampshire values. So I think we need to send New Hampshire values down to DC to get the budget back in process. I also mentioned earlier the budget process. Where things spin out of control is the endless pork. We come up with a budget, and we have these pork barrel programs that come out in the middle of the night, and that's where the budget process spins out of control. So I think we need to reduce spending completely. I would advocate for freezing the budget right where it is right now. I've said it many times. We need to simply freeze the budget and examine the process to get things back under control. So yeah, inflation is the #1 issue, everyone I speak to. You know, I read recently that a McDonald's meal has gone up 141% since Joe Biden took office. That's like a $10 meal that now costs $24. So the Democratic spending has created this problem. It can be solved. So I think there's common sense, conservative solutions that can get the budget back under control and reduce inflation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Our next topic is immigration. According to the Washington Post, illegal crossings at the southern border have more than tripled under President Biden. A few months ago, former President Donald Trump called on Republicans to vote against a border deal negotiated by a bipartisan group of senators. Would you have voted for the bipartisan border deal? And if elected, what other policies would you support to control the crisis at the southern border? Mr. Hamlen?
Thank you, Jack. I read that bill, and I can tell you it would have allowed in up to 1 million illegal aliens every year forever. It was one of the worst bills I've ever read. I absolutely would have voted against it. I think what we need to do, if we're looking at immigration reform, we need to start by securing the border. If necessary, I would advocate for, if it took 5 Army divisions to go to the border, that's what we need to do. I think we need to build a wall. We need to hire more border guards. We need to bring in technology. We need to do everything possible to secure that border. I also think we need to declare war on the drug cartels. These people are evil. They're poisoning our children. You know, China subsidizes the fentanyl precursors. They go into Mexico. The Chinese triads are working with the Mexican drug cartels to ship these drugs over the border. They're coming up here in New Hampshire. You know, we recently we were ranked as having the #1 quality of life in the nation, but the area we're falling behind was on drug deaths and drug overdoses. So I think securing the border is one way we can stop that. So before we talk about any type of reform, we need to secure the border. Beyond that, I think there's been talk of deportation. Well, I think we need to focus on the bad people. I think the felons in places like Boston, Mayor Wu, has prevented her police from cooperating with ICE agents. I recently heard a story of someone in Hanover that was run over by an illegal alien in the Boston area. They caught the guy and re-released him. If any of us had done that, we would go to jail. So I think we need to get these sanctuary cities back under control in order to bring safety back. So secure the border, end sanctuary cities, and start enforcing the law again. And then we can talk about what to do with the rest of the people that are here.
I would not vote for that bill. After they let in 10 million illegals, they start to talk about, oh, let's spend some money on like a reform, like about 10 million already came in here. I am a legal immigrant. I come here, work hard, and save money, live my American dream. I sponsor my own brother coming from China. He had to wait 13 years in line and to do background checks, health screens, with me paying for everything and guarantee first 5 years when he's in this country, he and his family will not become a tax burden on the back of taxpayers. Why would the Democrats not allow 5 to 10 million legal immigrants are waiting for years, some over a decade, to come in here to supply, contribute to our economy, live the American dream? Why they don't like illegals, but they want to lure illegals in? Is that because they can come in, get on government welfare checks, and register to vote? I don't know. That's a good question to ask. I love legal immigrants. They come here, work really hard. You know, I had Uber drivers, legal immigrants tell me, Lily, my family is waiting for 14 years now. And this Uber driver had to wait 10 years with a master's degree to come here, drive a Uber. Well, that tells you why. They will not welcome people who follow our laws. We are a country of laws. We should send a strong message to say, we are a country of laws. We want to have a secure borders, but we welcome you with open hearts if you go through legal process. But I admit our legal process is very outdated. Needs to be streamlined, cut the bureaucratic tapes, and open up our job market if we don't have enough workers for certain industries. And we should focus on those real issues instead of let's create chaos. Let's get rid of borders. Without a border, we don't have a sovereignty of the country. We don't have a country at all. So that's where I will stand. Get back to the Trump era, secure border policies. Get rid of catch and release.
Thank you. Our next topic tonight, foreign affairs. This is a two-question topic. Over the past few months, Republicans have been increasingly divided over whether to send military and humanitarian aid to foreign countries. Would you vote to increase, decrease, or continue to fund at the same level American military aid to Israel and/or Ukraine? Mrs. Williams?
Well, I know our country is deeply in debt, $35 trillion. We would like to support our allies, and we also like to ask question, how are we going to pay for it? Would you ask that question if your family in trouble, but you are broke yourself? So we need to ask that question. And we stand with Israel. They were attacked, and they are our best ally in the Middle East, and the only democracy in the Middle East. And they have a right to self-defense. They have the right to, eliminate Hamas, a terrorist organization. And Ukraine, we stand with them when they were attacked. But how much money we're going to send to them, or continue to send to them, how we're going to pay for it. And where's the path to victory? Where did the money go? How do we hold them accountable where the money goes, right? There are lots of questions I have need to be answered. I will not go to Congress just because, I'm told to vote for certain bills. I always have so many questions. My husband can tell you about America. He cannot answer sometimes. Oh, study on your own, But, I think that I call myself American first. And my voters first in my district, my people first. If I'm running for Congress, I would like to listen to your concerns. And I have asked people over and over again, would you like for me to vote on those bills? 95% people tell me, no, our district too needs money here. And especially if inflation is so high, we don't want any more printed money. We need to bring down the cost for the American citizens in our district. And so foreign policy, I think we need to develop a foreign policy peace through strength. But if America is weak, $35 trillion in debt, relying on China, we don't have economical or military strength in the world.
So, Mrs. Williams, to be clear, would you vote to increase, decrease, or continue to fund at the same level aid to Ukraine and Israel?
I will start from square one and then look at, the whole bill and read the whole bill. I need time to read the bill. If I don't have time to read the bill, I will not vote for it.
Thank you. Mr. Hamlen?
Okay, first of all, let's talk about Ukraine first. Vladimir Putin is evil, and he needs to be stopped. The war we see in Ukraine right now was not just a failure of diplomacy, but it was a failure of deterrence. Vladimir Putin saw our weak exit from Afghanistan as a signal to go in. So I think when it comes to Ukraine, Vladimir Putin is evil, and the Ukrainian people, I have tremendous respect for the fight they put up. They're making great progress, and I think we need to back them. I do think we need a little bit more clarity and transparency in the process. I'd like to know what is the plan and where do we go from here. But in general, I support and I would continue spending, to answer your question in particular, and I think they need our tremendous support. I think the Biden administration's waffling has emboldened our enemies. Right now we're facing, it's the new axis of evil. We have Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea all working together against us. This is because we have weakness. When we show weakness, our enemies gather. Now, when it comes to Israel, under Joe Biden, Iran has taken in an extra $100 billion in oil revenue. This revenue subsidizes their terrorist activities in places like with Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthi rebels. Our coddling of Iran by Joe Biden is the biggest problem we have right now. Now, with regards to Israel, I think they need our unwavering support. I, again, have been very disappointed with the on-again, off-again, on-again, off-again support we've seen. I would be a staunch defender of Israel forever. They are one of our greatest allies, and I'm very disappointed how the Biden administration has handled this. And I'll just finish by saying, back to Iran, you know, under President Trump, we were enforcing the Iranian oil embargoes. Iran was quiet. We had peace in the Middle East. Under President Trump, we had the Abraham Accords, and he did a fantastic job. But that was peace through strength and deterrence.
Thank you. Second question. In your opinion, what is the greatest threat to American national security in the next decade, and how should Congress combat it? Mr. Hamlen, you go first.
We've talked about it, but I will come back to it, and that is inflation is the biggest threat we face. You know, when I graduated in 1982, in 1984, the economy bottomed in 1982. The students I know that graduated in the late 70s, they always struggled in their careers because we had roaring inflation in the 1970s. By the time I graduated, inflation had moderated, and people in my era had successful careers. So there's a vast difference between those that graduated during inflation and those that graduated once we got it under control. If not checked, this inflation could destroy our country. People ask me occasionally the same question about Social Security, and Medicaid, and Medicare. Well, if we go bankrupt as a nation, we won't have any money. So this is absolutely an existential threat, the spending we have right now. You look at the price of gold, it hit 10,000-year highs Friday afternoon because of concerns over our financial viability and stability. So yes, inflation is absolutely an existential threat to our nation. But you know, going back to the 1980s, in the late 1970s, we had similar inflation. Our country was weak, and our enemies, we had Iranian hostages as opposed to hostages in Israel. We had a roaring inflation, worse than possibly similar to what we have right now. But we had the Ronald Reagan revolution, and we got spending under control, and by the mid-1990s, we had a budget surplus. So I guess my point is, I've got friends that have given up. I haven't given up. That's why I want to go to Washington. We faced problems like this before. It's a solvable process. We just need to get spending under control, and we've done it before, and we can do it again through common sense, conservative leadership, and that's why I'm running for office.
Thank you. Mrs. Williams?
When you say biggest threat, are you still referring to foreign policy, or it's general?
It's under the foreign policy topic, but you're welcome to answer it however you wish.
I would say that in terms of our hostile countries, People's Republic of China, my native country, is the biggest national security threat to the United States. We have ideologies with them not compatible, and Xi Jinping has a China dream to take over the world economically, militarily, and technologically. That's actually, I think that they are behind all these socialist and totalitarian communist countries. They are behind Iran, that just want to back Hamas to attack Israel, and they are behind North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, and Putin. Putin and Xi Jinping have formed unlimited alliance and friendship. Maybe they call each other big brothers, that's the Chinese name, they call their INS. But we have very unsensible China policies, and the Biden-Harris administration, crazy Green New Deals, and the taxpayers' money go to China state enterprises, come to United States to build battery factories in Michigan, and to supply the Queens and EVs to our country. They probably are laughing at us. We are taking advantage of Americans' ideology, but to infiltrate into America. And all the taxpayers' money we spend on the China enterprises actually empower their PLA expansion and Silk Road initiative to take over the world. United States, needed to reevaluate its China policy. I will be the best one to go to Congress because no Republican candidate for Congress like me right now. I will help the new administration under Trump to deal with CCP because I lived under them for 24 years. I know what it's like.
Thank you. The next topic, abortion rights. For decades, one of the chief tenets of the Republican Party's platform was a national abortion ban. After Roe v. Wade was overturned, Donald Trump has come out in favor of leaving abortion at the sole discretion of state governments. Other Republicans have supported federal legislation, and Democrats have supported restoring Roe v. Wade. If you are elected to Congress, would you vote for or against a national 12-week abortion ban? Would you vote for or against the restoration of Roe v. Wade's central holding that abortion is a guaranteed right before the third trimester of pregnancy? Mrs. Williams, you answer first.
It's on my website. I support that Supreme Court give this issue back to the state. They even took some personal risk for doing that because they got people demonstrating and protesting, threatening them in front of their house. And also that if we truly respect state rights and the representative, democratic process, then let the state to decide. That's as close to be democratic as possible. So I don't stand the Democrats who talk about democracy all the time, but they want to give the federal government more power to decide on this issue. So they all of a sudden they don't respect democracy. And also they use this issue to get lots of women voters. But do they understand what is the definition of a real woman? Real women are being canceled, are being demonized, crushed in women's sports, and no privacy in women's bathrooms, and locker rooms, and the female jails. I stand for women's rights. I stand for real women. And also, I respect other people who want to choose their lifestyle difference once they're 18. I totally respect that because I'm libertarian leaning. But I have been talking about this issue for a while. I am personally, supporting the life culture. I survived communism. The rule of government is supposed to protect life, liberty, and pursue happiness. But the woman and babies, they are both lives. How do we show compassion and balance both lives? I think the best way for conservative to promote the life culture is a private charity. I'm amongst the donor of pregnancy centers. I save one woman a year with the future baby and save her also regret. Someday she might regret, I shouldn't have the abortion. So this is where we should put our focus on but let the state people to decide on this issue. And in New Hampshire, we have 6 months, which I think that's where people agree with, and I respect that.
So to be clear, you would vote against any federal legislation?
I will not vote for, against, in between, nothing. That's on my website.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mr. Hamlen?
Well, first of all, I think it's important that we approach this topic with an appropriate level of compassion and respect for the women involved. I'm the father of 2 young ladies. They're here tonight. They're ages 20 and 22. And I think people get wrapped up in the emotion, but I think we need to approach it with compassion and empathy. Second of all, in New Hampshire, we have a 6-month abortion limit with a late-term abortion ban. It's a common sense consensus that works for New Hampshire. I fully support New Hampshire's laws the way they're constructed. I also agree with President Trump that this is fundamentally a states' rights issue. What's right for California is different than what's right for South Dakota. And what's right for New Hampshire is in fact, I'm very proud of the common sense consensus that we have right now. A 6-month limit, late-term abortion restrictions. The other thing I'd add is that I think it's important that we reduce the overall number of abortions, and the best way to do that is with access to reproductive care. So I support increasing access to reproductive care. I also know, just going a little bit further, of several couples that have struggled to adopt. Our adoption regulations are a little bit too complicated. So I think that we need to streamline and make adoption more accessible for everybody involved. And that's something that seems to fall through the cracks when we talk about abortion. I think there's a few things we can do with adoption. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, just to be clear, I would not vote for anything federally that in any way was more restrictive than what we have in New Hampshire. We've got fantastic laws up here, and I'm very proud of them.
Okay. Thank you. Our next topic is New Hampshire's 2nd Congressional District. While the past few questions have been about national issues, albeit ones that certainly impact the people of the Granite State, every congressional district is unique. In your opinion, what are the biggest issues specifically impacting the voters of New Hampshire's 2nd Congressional District? And why are you the best candidate for this district? Mr. Hamlen, you begin.
This may sound, we've talked about it before, but I'll talk again. You know, I've been from Canada down to the Mass border. I've stopped in diners, gas stations, restaurants. I've met a lot of voters. That's what I've been doing for the last couple months. And everyone I speak to, their number 1 and 2 issues are inflation and the border. This is what people are worried about. We see the mass immigration coming into New York. It's coming into Massachusetts. It's now drifting into Manchester. People are worried about it, and people are worried about the cost of living and inflation. These are the 2 issues. So I don't think that they're necessarily local issues. They're not just Republican issues either. These are issues that appeal to Republicans, independents, and Democrats too. So if, when elected to Congress, I would go to Washington and I would secure the border. It's the absolute number 1 thing I would do. That's what people that I speak to are worried about. The second thing I would, and if that meant, as I said, bringing in Army, building a wall, doing anything we could to secure the border, that's what I would do. With regard to inflation, I would just add one more thing. You know, I think we need to freeze government spending. I think we need to look at the budget process. But we as a nation are blessed with some of the greatest energy resources on planet Earth, you know, and we need to free up American energy. My wife and I recently took a handgun safety course at the Enfield Outing Club. We used Live Free or Die ammo. The manufacturer loves making things in New Hampshire because there's a lot of tradesmen, a lot of retired military, and the problem he has in making this ammo here in New Hampshire is the price of energy. We have the 2nd highest price of energy in the nation. It's really crushing small businesses, so it's not a small issue, it's an absolute major issue. We need to get the price of energy down, and that will help the businesses of New Hampshire. Thank you.
Mrs. Williams?
Well, with border illegal immigration as a top issue now, 83% granted staters are very worried about. I think because I'm legal immigrant, I went through entire legal process to become citizen. I went through entire 13 years to bring my brother and his family over. So I will help a lot when it comes to sending very strong message to the people who want to come here, live American dream. We welcome you, come here legally. But let's focus on some, very, very smart and sensible immigration policies. And that's number 1. I think I will be a very critical person to address on that issue. And I will even advocate, if you don't want to see illegal mass deportations, I want to offer to Democrats who are very compassionate, become American sponsors. So for 5 years, that the illegal immigrant can be, yours to take care of, and no taxpayers' burden. So that will solve lots of problems because, and just like lots of conservatives, let's put the money where our mouth is, right? Instead of just, everybody looking to federal government, big sugar daddy, give me some money, and funding this, funding that. And number 2, as I said, nobody is like me in the U.S. Congress. It's come down to trust issue. New Hampshire district people, and it's leaning a little bit Democrat, but there are 41% independents. I found out that the people trust me to represent them. They say, Lily, you seem real deal, you are honest, and you survive socialism, communism. So we trust you when you go to DC. You will know what it's like. You will call their policies out. And they talk like one, sounds like one, their ideological is like one. That means they are socialists. So I will call them out. And also, I truly believe our government, per founding father, is of the people, by the people, for the people. I will absolutely stand and represent the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next topic is about college. One very fitting for here. So in 1980, one term at Dartmouth cost just over $2,000. Today, Dartmouth's termly tuition fee is just about $27,000, an increase of over 1,200%. Unfortunately, Dartmouth is not unique in this matter. If elected to Congress, what policies, if any, would you support to make college more affordable for America's middle class? Mrs. Williams?
Well, I have a talk about, after probably trillions dollars spent, and our kids in this country actually are not properly educated. And compared with other developed countries, their academic performance, is not high. And they come out of college, and lots of them look like Karl Marx. So I don't know, that is that government solution to continue to fund education, or should we give back to state, give back to local control and parent control? Because that's what we believe in New Hampshire. It's a local control and parental control. And also that Department of Education, since it's funded, they have been spending and they have been getting involved lots of areas, and they shouldn't. I got involved in politics because I had 3 children in public schools, and I got involved against Obama's Common Core. I call that centralized education and data collection and indoctrination and whatever they call standardized testing. It's like one size fits all. It just does not work because we are individual rights-based society. If we get the federal government out of the way, stop subsidize student loans, subsidize education, the cost, let the free market work, it might come down some more. That also inflation drive up the college costs too, right? Because everybody wants to make more money, the utility bills goes up, and all the costs go up, so eventually everything goes up. Our debt to GDP right now is 122%. Once it hit the critical mass, 150%, we're gonna face a super inflation, and we're gonna become like Argentina, or it was before until they got a new president elected. Well, I think we really need to focus on cutting down the Department of Education, and maybe that will bring the cost down and give back to the states and let the parents to decide.
Mr. Hamlen?
I believe Thomas Jefferson said that an educated population is the key to a functioning democracy. So I'm a big advocate for education. My father went to college, then he went to grad school, all on a scholarship. My mother was a nurse. I obviously came to Dartmouth College. I went to public high school, and I believe when I came here, it was $14,000 a year. And my father took out loans. We paid them off. When I met my wife, she was working during the day, going to school at night, and she took out loans and paid off those loans. So I fundamentally believe in education, and my one daughter just graduated from Dartmouth. My other daughter's in college. It's the foundation of our democracy is a good education. But I also have 2 nephews. One is a diesel mechanic, and the other has a pool cleaning company. And there's no reason these boys should be paying for anyone else's education. So I think I'm fundamentally opposed to the idea of any type of federal bailout for education. I just think it's an insult to all those hardworking Americans that didn't go to college. It's just not fair to them. Now, with regards to your specific question, what can the federal government do? I do think there is a role. I think schools like Dartmouth take a lot of federal funding. And I've been very involved in the process of raising money for Dartmouth for education to make it need blind. And the biggest complaint that people bring to me is the expansion of administrative costs. So I think the role for the federal government would be in terms of overseeing some of the institutions like Dartmouth that have seen their administrative costs balloon out of control, just like government spending. We can bring some oversight to create a maximum administrative cost. There are ways that we can bring institutions back down or bring the cost back down to help out students. So I would fight against the administrative expansion or the expansion of administrative costs at a federal level.
Thank you. We are coming to the close of the forum, so we're going to get to 1 or 2 audience questions before closing statements. The audience questions were submitted on the Eventbrite form prior to attendance. These questions are all questions we received from the audience. If they've been edited at all, it's only for length and clarity. Our first question: what is your philosophy on working with Democrats? If elected, will you compromise or stick to your principles, even if that means getting less done? Mr. Hamlen?
Good question. Thank you, Jack. It's funny. My parents are both 94, and they're alive and healthy. I've been married for 28 years. I've got a wife, and I've got 2 daughters. And I say that because when I go to Congress, I'm going to have to look them in the eyes when I come home every day. And I think we need to dial back on the rancor and think about the people we live with, our relatives, our friends, and what we can do to work with them, first of all. Second of all, my career in trading has been driven by working with adversaries. That is what I did for 30-plus years, figured out how to deal with countries or opponents. And in many of these places, it was Saudi Arabia. India, Iran, where my company dealt, and China and Japan. So we've dealt with adversaries like that, and we know how to deal with them. And so I look forward to bringing my skills in getting deals done and working with adversaries to find common sense conservative solutions to working things together. I also think we need less rancor in Washington, D.C. I think people are tired of the last 8 years of rancor, and we need leaders that can work across the aisle and find compromise. I mentioned earlier dealing with the reform of some of the entitlement programs. This is an area where we need consensus in order to bring integrity to the American people. So when I go to Washington, I look forward to working with Democrats and finding common sense conservative solutions that both sides can agree on. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, since I left China, I have a hold corporate jobs, managers' jobs, and I also started my own business. I have to work with people from all walks of life. I was also charter school board member and got elected chair. So I went to actually UT Austin, Texas, got my master's degree in social work. So I had actually people who were Democrats. I had no problem to work with people and from another side. And, in my stay here, I created a women's social club, and I'm a chair of Aging American Coalition. So I think the important part is when we go to Washington, we need to remember who elected us, who we supposed to represent, and get job done. And we do have to work with another side, sit down at the table, and for the good of our country and our people. Always be statesman and stateswoman, not play politics, not through emotional tantrum. I think that we all have to act, very professionally. If we do disagree, I always, say, hey, we just have to disagree respectfully. And thank goodness, I have 75 county chairs and grassroots co-chairs, and for District 2, we all work together as a team every 2 weeks. We have to work on campaign, events and issues, and they can tell you that I'm a good leader because I listen, I respect them, and also I set up my expectations, what we want to accomplish as leader very clearly. And my kids can tell you, Mom was Tiger Mom, but she loves us. So that's how I work. I would say, let's work together for the good of our country, our people. And if we disagree, let's be respectful. That's what I intended to do. I was trying to go to Washington and get something done by working with another side.
Thank you. Our final audience question. Mrs. Williams, in 2016, you ran for the U.S. Senate as a Libertarian. Mr. Hamlen, recently you were a registered Democrat. When did you both decide to become Republicans, and why? Mrs. Williams?
Well, what you Google me saw, I was Libertarian in 2016, because that's when I ran, so people knew, I was Libertarian, but they never tell you. When I become American citizen, I did research on two parties. I become Republican first. I did my internship with the budget committee in Colorado State because I wanted to learn about my new country, how political system works. I was a Republican for many years until I feel like the party left me in 2008. So I was, and doing lots of Republican stuff, and I realized, I'm so, just like some of you feel, I'm so deserted by my party. And that's when the Libertarian Party say, please run for us, run for us. You can get lots of free practice and to tell my stories. So that's what I did. And then I discovered I wasn't effective. I could not get into debate. But the people love my stories, and they love my messages. So I went back to Republican Party again, 2019, and start to speak around the country. And I come here 5 years ago, immediately reached as Republican. I was chair of a Republican committee in Ware, rebooted the committee. I got elected as a supervisor of checklist in Ware. And I published probably a dozen articles since I come here, defend the parental rights, educational freedom, and gun rights, and the privacy. I went to conquer many times as just an activist to speak, to tell my stories and support our good bills. when it comes to bills I support, I oppose some better Republican bills too, actually. So I'm not that partisan. And I have strong principles, and I really have a pure motive to run for Congress to save our country and save American dream. So I want people to not to believe some slanders that from some opponents, but do your own research.
Thank you. Mr. Hamlen?
Thank you, Jack. I think my answer is a little bit shorter and to the point. I've been a registered Republican most of my life. In 2020, I donated to Donald Trump, and I voted for Donald Trump. In this election cycle, I've donated several times to Donald Trump, and I look forward to voting for him. However, when I saw that he was going to win in a complete landslide, I took the opportunity to switch my registration just to vote against Joe Biden. Joe Biden represents everything that is wrong with the Democratic Party to me, and I felt like exercising my right temporarily to vote against him. So I switched my registration, voted against Joe Biden, and then I switched it right back to Republican. Plain and simple.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. That concludes the question and answer part of our forum. Before we let you all go there, we just want to thank the candidates. Oh, closing remarks. My bad.
Well, yeah. So
We're not done
ready to go
yet.
home now. Yeah.
Mr. Hamlen, you will begin with closing remarks. My
Sure.
apologies.
Well, thanks again for this forum. And let me start by saying from being an Eagle Scout to tutoring in Harlem when I was living in Manhattan, service is at the core of who I am as a human being. And one of the reasons I'm running really is to serve all of you and serve the people of New Hampshire. Now, with regards to this race, there's 13 people in the field, and I'd like to highlight some of the differences between me and some of the other opponents. First of all, I'm a common sense conservative, and I share your values. Second of all, I've got very specific articulated plans with regards to inflation, with regards to the border, on what I plan on doing. And as I've said, I will do everything within my means to secure the border, and I've got very simple ideas, common sense conservative ideas on how to freeze spending, free up American energy, bring down the price of energy, and bring down inflation. The third thing is, I support President Trump. Between 2016 and 2020, we had low inflation, we had the best economy of my entire life, and we had peace in the Middle East. We had peace everywhere. We had strength, peace through strength. We even had the Abraham Accords, which was a fantastic accomplishment. Recently, when the Iranians attacked Israel, Saudi Arabia and Jordan actually helped with Israel. That was a direct result of the Abraham Accords. So thank you, President Trump, for that. The last thing I'll say is, from working on a farm to trading energy around the world, I bring a unique life experience to this race that's rare in Washington and it's non-existent in this race. So I think I've got some very unique, special life skills that can help the people of New Hampshire, and I look forward to going to Washington using those skills to represent the people of New Hampshire. So I'm Bill Hamlen, and I look forward to representing all of you, and that's why I'm asking for your vote to send me to Washington to help bring common sense conservative values of New Hampshire values back to D.C. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlen. Mrs. Williams?
I came here to live under freedom, and I like the opportunities I had to achieve American dream. But I'm worried about my children and you children will not live, that American dream. And it was Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution brought me to this country. And I have very strong principles. If you want somebody to truly represent you and defend your individual rights and liberty, all Bill of Rights, you judge yourself. Would you trust somebody who survived communism, who appreciated our freedom here, who loves this country, who wants to give back to serve the American people and serve the New Hampshire? I embrace American ideals: freedom, free market capitalism, meritocracy, and rule of law. I want no losing those American ideals. And I feel I am the best person to come out defend those American ideals, including our New Hampshire tradition and values. Live free or die. Death is not worst of evil. Because my political activism speak around the country, I'm taking personal risks to be on Communist Party's blacklist. I received death threat on X from Beijing account. They want me to shut up. They want me to keep my head down like I was still subject to their dictatorship rule in China. And I told them, take a hike. I am a granny stater. I'm an American. I will not be silenced unless I decide to silence myself. So I have this fire in the belly. If you want somebody to go debate and defeat a Democrat opponent, maybe even radical leftist, I would be the person to do that. Please support me and vote for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Thank you, Mr. Hamlen. We very much appreciate your presence here, coming to Dartmouth and talking to not only Dartmouth students and members of the Dartmouth community, but members of the Hanover and Upper Valley community as well. I know it's not easy being a Republican here. So thank you also to the audience for coming. We're very glad you could hear. Another special thank you to Devorah, to the Rockefeller Center staff, to the maintenance crew, and all of the people, our video crew back there. Thank you very much. We have a meet and greet outside with some of the candidates, some refreshments, water, again, restrooms outside and to the right. Thank you very much for coming.